The Saudi I grew up in was a completely different place, especially for women.
Welcome back to the Knowing Moments. I'm your host, Joy Chick. If you're new here, please subscribe to this channel. It helps more people who are navigating change, reinvention, and their own knowing moments find these conversations. Today, we're talking about how travel transforms us. Here's a question. Why do some people come home from their travel transformed, while others simply come home? I have visited more than 70 countries for work and adventure. But the trips that I remember most weren't necessarily my best vacations. They were the journey where something shifted inside me, where I returned home seeing the world, my life, or even myself differently. And one trip that really changed my perspective was a work trip to Saudi Arabia with Nancy Mounir, who was my chief of staff at Microsoft at the time. That trip reminded me that sometimes the biggest thing we discover through travel isn't a new place. It's a new perspective. So Nancy, thank you for joining us.
I'm really excited to be here, Joy.
So as you probably know, I think I probably be more nervous than you were when you said we are going to take a work trip to Saudi.
You kind of think that I actually grew up there. I was born there. So you think that I know the place, but the Saudi I grew up in was a completely different place, especially for women. So honestly, I was really afraid of going back there. And I had a lot of doubts because of how my childhood experience has shaped my thought process around it. But I was very curious when the trip came because I thought if there's something I wanted to do is to go do this with you and be on stage and be a woman representing the tech on the stage in Saudi.
And my reaction was, I think I'd asked you, I said, do they know I'm a woman? Do they really want me to be there?
I remember that.
But then I thought, just like you said, I said, well, if they know I'm a woman and then they still invite us, so we got to show up, right?
I don't know if I told you this before, but the first time they sent the request, actually, I asked them if they knew.
So I would say, from the moment we landed, right, I just felt like there's so many assumptions that I had prior to before I go there, that has changed just from the moment I landed. Sort of for me, I would say my first discovery from all the travels, especially with the Saudi trip, is it really challenges our assumptions, right? So what was probably the thing sticks with you the most, that trip throughout, or the one you remember the most?
There was a couple of things I expected. Like I expected the hospitality. It's a thing in the middle.
See, that was kind of new to me because I don't know. I just thought if they might be reserved somehow. I don't know why, but I just had that assumption. But contrary, that hospitality, I would say it's even warmer than in the States, when we go to some new place, people seem to hesitate a little bit.
Do you remember the official welcome we had at the airport when we just landed, right? From the moment they received us at the door, they treated us with a lot of respect.
They treated us like royalty.
They did treat us like royalty. We actually got the royal treatment and we got the coffee and the dates.
I did remember they were trying to take so many shots, but we just came off a 14-hour flight.
Yes.
I remember asking you, say, well, maybe we should go to the bathroom to change. I think I did, right?
We did a little bit, yes, because we were a little bit more comfortable on the plane.
Right.
And we're we land and all these paparazzis with cameras going in. I was that's part of the official reception. Now, they didn't tell us there's an official reception, but after I saw it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It's an official, event with an official reception. The bit that surprised me, I saw a group of folks that are helping us has equal amounts of, again, women and men.
That is
helping.
very true. That's very true.
And that in itself started to okay, maybe there's a slight shift, right? And as we talked to more women from our office and found out that has changed quite differently over the years. They can work now, they can drive. Yes, there's still some restrictions and things, but I mean, it's so much better. And that had challenged my assumption on how a country or a group of people can transform themselves and give me hope. Because if a closed group like that can challenge themselves and intentionally change to the better, that gives hope for the rest of the world. The number 2 thing that stuck with me is when we went the next day to visit our office in Saudi.
That's right. I
walked in the office expecting to be a little bit more male-dominated environment.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, but they asked you, and this was an unplanned moment, because you were there, and they had a women leader kind of luncheon happening, and they invited us both. And then we sat around that table, and I started to hear the stories of how these women, some of them were, raised in, but maybe did their studies outside, but how they went back to work. And how they're being treated. I remember my tears kind of started to drum a little bit because
and I remember give a little nudge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's still until now when I remember that moment, I will tear up because I was like, I wish my mom, because she was a physician, she was working there, and it wasn't the easiest of the working conditions. Hope is what I felt that day. Because I was like, if something like this, if an environment like that I grew up in, that had all the restrictions and all the things that may not be right in the world, if they can transform themselves,
right?
I was like, there's hope in the world yet.
I remember your reaction. I also distinctively, in my head, I was like, wow, if I put away for a moment that I'm actually physically, in Riyadh at Microsoft office, I could have lifted that scene to Redmond, to any place in the US having a round table with women at Microsoft. To me, it's also the amount of confidence these young women showed.
The other moment that usually stands up with me when I remember that trip is because I speak English the way I do.
Yeah, that's right.
People forget or don't know sometimes that although my last name could be Arabic, people don't know. They assume I was born here. So the fun part is when they start to speak in Arabic, thinking that we don't understand, and I gently smile. And I'm like, did you understand what we just said?
That's
and I'm
right.
like, yes.
But I also find, first they were shocked, oh, did you just understand what all the little chit-chat, side chit-chat? It's did we say something embarrassing I shouldn't listen, you should have heard? But I also what I saw was there's instant connection. They suddenly oh, you're one of us, you know us, I know you.
It's interesting that you felt that because I felt it too, and I didn't know it just because of me feeling just back home.
I think I asked you before the trip, I said, should I even shake hands? Should I not? I think you told me, well, you don't offer to shake hands, but if the other person offer the hands, feel free to shake hands, right?
Yes.
And I remember all the different leaders across different companies that in Saudi that we met, all of them, I would say majority extend shaking our hands, there's no hesitation. Feels very much as if we would done this conversation in Europe. I think what I remember most was I said, it would have made my trip if at the end of the trip, I can hug one of them. Yes. Because of course, I remember you said, okay, don't get ahead of yourself. Yeah,
don't get excited on that one.
Shake hands is okay. Hugging, I'm not sure. And I remember at the end of our trip, the country general manager literally extended a hug to me. And I remember I was like, okay, this is it. I wrecked my moment of I got a hug from the local country manager, because the trip was so successful, but also we really bonded together with them.
You know what? It also has to do a lot with how you showed up. Because again, we're in a country where they respect hierarchy quite a bit.
Yeah.
They respect they're hospitable and things like that. But I think they also were expecting someone with a big title at Microsoft to come in to be a little bit more, again, feeling the hierarchy, reserved, right?
Yeah.
And I think once they start to see you and, the first couple, hours in a day, you are really warm and kind of wanting to know the people. I remember one of them kind of leaned over, I think day 2 or day 3, and she's like, Joy feels like a sister more than anything else, because you embraced everything too. You You were down to earth. You were talking to everyone. You were genuinely curious about all the stories you're hearing. It's all you. It's all how you show up.
I never thought about that.
It
It's funny.
is.
Like
It is.
somehow we never talked about
I know.
it
Somehow we
before.
never talked about that, but it is. And then once when they feel you're part of the family,
Yeah.
some of these rigid rules and regulations and mental models kind of break down by itself.
That's a good perspective. This also leads to my next discovery. And sometimes I would say the best moments that like stayed with us on a trip is not the itinerary we perfectly planned out, both whether work or personal, or you check all the boxes of the landmarks. It's actually, I would say, the unexpected, whether good or bad, experiences.
The first time I had an unplanned moment, which actually like stayed with me for a long time, it was actually on a work trip. So we travel equally for work as well as for, at personal. The work stuff has always been for me, you travel to some place, you get the job done, then you're on a plane, then you're back. It's a checklist. And then the first time I crossed a weekend, it was actually in Brazil. I was in Sao Paulo doing some work and I had to spend a weekend. And then I had options between spending the weekend doing work, which I normally did. But then I had someone in the office on a Friday before the thing, and they were like, hey, if you'd like, we can come with you. So I'm like, okay, you know what? That's a great idea. But then as I was thinking through that, I was like, if that person, like if my friend is going to come pick me up on Saturday morning, how about they actually show me where would they go? So I actually asked and I said, hey, would you go to any of these places that I picked up? And they were like, absolutely not. Like,
and those are for tourists.
Like, it's for tourists. If you want to see the true city, let me take you around. So it was a Saturday morning and it was the absolutely perfect day for me. Totally unplanned. I didn't have any idea where I'm going to go. So they took me for this meal. Then as we are sitting down and having the food, we were sitting outside, it started to pour heavy rain. Then like everyone then everyone stepped on it inside and literally 7 minutes and then everyone walked back in. And I was like, okay, are we going to go home now?
Right.
And I was like, no, it's fine. It just does that like 5-6 minutes. And then it's like clockwork. Like all the cafes that were on the street just got all the people in. So anyway, we continued the meal. Then we went to little park. We walked around. I kind of saw how the people do it. And then there was a little concert in that park that we watched. It was absolutely beautiful. But what had that changed in me is like, now every single time I go travel, I try to find someone from the city that I'm on. And it's like, where would you go? Even if they can't go with me. It's like, where would you go? Where would you take your family? Because what you find out is you find out the true colors of the city or the place that you're in.
You know what, you like remind me of my like latest trip to Denmark, Estonia, and Helsinki. In Estonia, literally the old town where all the cruise ship like docked.
Yep.
That kind of, it's cute medieval town. Like if you come from cruise ship, that's all you see, right? For Tallinn, like the capital, city of Estonia. But we flew there, so we stayed at a hotel. And our travel guide literally told us, well, nobody lives in that little medieval town. Well, all the tourists would thought that is the, Tallinn of Estonia, if you will. But instead, he actually took us, in the car, we actually traveled all like in the outskirts. And then we saw all the different parts, the new parts, the old parts, all the different parts of the city where people actually live. And exactly like you said, I mean, it's not like, not necessarily picture perfect from the photography of your travel sort of memorabilia perspective, but you actually say, oh, that's how people actually live, and that actually more interesting than actually visit all the castles. I mean, they're cool, but that led me to what I call my travel discovery number 3. The greatest souvenir we can bring back is perspective. What's a moment that from another trip that, that really brought back, that stayed with you? And frankly, if anything, that really changed your perspective?
I speak 3 different languages, as you probably know.
Yeah.
I speak French, I speak
Which I'm
Arabic,
super jealous, by the way.
and I speak English. And most of the travel until a particular point in my life, there was one of those 3 languages that would get me to move around and know where I'm going. until the first time I visited China. I realized that it's a harder language to pick up. So the story is, I was in a cab. I was trying to get somewhere. I couldn't explain where I need to go to the gentleman who's driving the cab. So I ended up out of the cab in a place where I don't know where it is, and I'm supposed to go find my way. Luckily for me, my hotel was tall enough that I could see it. I just don't know where it is. So I can directionally know where it is. But I was forced to walk in the street. That experience left me a little bit scared. I'm in a foreign country. I don't speak the language. I don't know the people. I also started to feel like, oh, this is completely different. Why am I traveling? Like all the bad thoughts go into your mind. Then I start to walk in the street. Then I see a mom with kids walking. The kids are doing some, running around and stuff, and the moms are picking them up. And then my brain started to tell me something very interesting. I started to observe the behaviors of the humans that are walking around me. I don't speak their language, but they look like me. They're a mom, and my kid was younger at the age, was almost the same age as my younger kid. And I'm like, all of a sudden, my feel of like, I don't belong here. This is different. Just disappeared by just walking in the street and observing people. And seeing, a couple walking by holding hands. I don't understand a word of what they're saying, but I can see the emotion on their faces. So that walk actually forced me to see people in a different light, if you will. Which, something I kept with me as I came back of like, I always walk in new cities that I go to, because that gives me that sense of familiarity. Because when you start to observe the people, you actually see they're more like you than not.
Yeah, we're more common than not, right?
Right?
You're wearing the Paris shirt,
Yes.
like one of my favorite cities. Your story reminded me that one of my, the first trip to Paris, that was like, I don't know, it's almost like 30 years ago or such. And, Parisian, I think they know English, but they prefer not to speak English to you. So I remember there was like our first trip, we went to a restaurant, and of course the menu is in French, and that's like before Google Translator, or you can just put a picture and then translate for you. So we literally don't understand a word on that. So what they did is they took us to the back, into the kitchen, and then they literally say, it's like,
pointed
do you want chicken? You literally see the meat, like, do you want chicken? Do you want pork? Do you want a beef? So I don't know how it was prepared, but that's what we did, right? But what you just reminded me, sometimes, food is a common topic. Sometimes a visual helps you to connect. You may not have the language to connect.
No, absolutely. And it's funny because, the common things I found out during my travel is people can agree on food. And most likely on different kinds of music. Like if you go listen to music, any concert, any place they're playing live music, people automatically connect on it, even if you don't speak the language.
On my personal trip is, I feel we're more connected, more common than not. And in a way, the world is huge. There's so many countries, so many places. But in many ways, the world also feels smaller when you travel, because you're like, we actually like each other.
So sometimes the travel also changes my perspective, not just on the places that I visited.
And actually, I like to travel to, I call it, the less travel, I actually travel not as often to Europe as to like Asia, or Africa, the less sort of explored places. Partly is when I come back, also give me a bit of perspective, I appreciate, we take our daily life so for granted of the things we have, you say, I have highways,
yes, I have clean water.
I have electricity, I think I have to come back with a bit of a renewed sense of, be grateful of what we have, but also how to be more kind, don't have these stereotypes to assume bad intention and such. It just kind of almost, I would say, reset me a little bit, in a grounded way.
And that's what I always appreciate about you, Joy, when we travel together. You're genuinely curious about the places that you go into, and you really want to learn about them. You come in with yes, I want to experience a few things, but I'm also open to new experiences and new things. And that's why I think me and you have always been good travel partners together.
Totally. And frankly, I would say probably one of the greatest souvenir comeback is our friendship has really deepened.
100%.
Right? As I reflected on my conversation with Nancy, I kept coming back to the question we began with. Why do some people come home transformed, while others simply come home? I don't think it's about distance, or how many countries you visited, or whether everything went according to plan. I think transformation begins with curiosity, the willingness to let go of certainty, the courage to be surprised, and the humility to believe that every place and every person has something to teach us. Today's conversation left me with 3 reminders. First, travel with curiosity instead of certainty. Every culture is more layered than the story we hear from a distance. So ask another question. Listen a little longer. Leave room to discover that you were wrong, because that's often where growth begins. Second, leave space for the unplanned. Book the flight, reserve the hotel, visit the landmarks, but don't schedule every minute. Leave room for the conversation, the invitation, the unexpected detour, or the quiet moment that somehow become the memory you carry for the rest of your life. And finally, bring the traveler's mindset home. Transformation isn't reserved for people with passports. It belongs to anyone who's willing to stay curious. Visit a neighborhood you'd never explored. Attend a cultural celebration. Talk with someone whose life looked different from yours. Walk a familiar street and notice something you'd never seen before. Because maybe the greatest gift of travel isn't discovering a new place. Maybe it's discovering a new way of seeing. And I'll leave you with one question. What place or what person has changed the way you see the world or yourself? Because sometimes the greatest souvenir isn't something you pack in your suitcase. It's the perspective you bring home. And when you know, you know. I'm Joy Chick. This is Knowing Moments. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, share this episode with someone who loves to travel, and join our community at theknowingmoments.com/email. And until next time, keep noticing.